Hello everyone, welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. So today is 14th May 2024 and we have few important articles for today's analysis. So let's try to understand all those important news articles one by one. And before discussing them, let's try to solve yesterday given practice question. You all knew that yesterday I've given one practice question regarding the bird flu. Okay, so bird flu is actually very frequently in news because World Health Organization has issued a cautious note on bird flu, that bird flu may emerge as a new pandemic. And in fact there are also issues that bird flu may emerge as a large scale pandemic or next pandemic after the COVID-19 pandemic. But the concern with respect to bird flu is that it rarely infects human beings. However, if it infects human beings, then the mortality rate is very high among the human beings, and that is the main concern. Because earlier reports have been suggesting that if 800 people are infected with this bird flu disease, so the mortality rate is more than 400. So therefore we can say that the mortality rate among the people who are infected with this bird flu disease, it is more than 52%, and because of that reason, if bird flu becomes a pandemic, then it is a greater cause of concern for us, right? So we also knew that bird flu first reported in India in the state of Maharashtra. Now the options, just look at the options. First option says that the virus can infect humans easily and spread from person to person is very common. Now understand that the virus cannot infect human beings easily. So it is not possible, rather it rarely infects human beings. However, once it infects human beings, then the mortality rate is very high. And apart from that, there are no reports of person to person infection from the bird flu disease. Okay, so this is the first option and it is clearly wrong. The second statement says that so this H5N1 bird flu virus infection in humans can cause severe disease but has less mortality. But it is not having a less mortality, rather it is having higher mortality rates, because I have already told you that the mortality rate is more than 52%. So therefore this statement is also clearly incorrect. So correct answer for this question is option D, neither 1 nor 2. Now briefly look at the explanation of bird flu. Bird flu is also known as the avian flu. It is also known as H5N1. Okay, so it is also called with H5N1. And in fact, it is an infectious viral illness. It is caused by virus and that mainly infect and spreads among the poultry and some wild birds. See, understand the concern is that it infects the poultry birds and wild birds, but recent times it has also started infecting the cattle also, because human beings are very commonly comes in contact with these cattle. So there is a chance that this viral infection may spread or may infect human beings also. And if it infects human beings due to its evolutionary nature, or it gradually evolves, any virus, for example, even if you look at the COVID-19 pandemic, so there are different variants of this virus. So therefore it regularly evolves. So if it evolves, then there is also a chance of human to human spread or human to human infection. Okay, so that is a key concern with respect to the bird flu, because its mortality rate is very high and it then quickly evolves into a highly pathogenic flu virus that causes a larger wave of illness, death than usual among the birds. So this is briefly about the bird flu. Now understand what exactly is the cause of concern with respect to H5N1 or bird flu virus, because the infection among human beings can cause severe diseases and it also has the higher levels of mortality among the people who are infected with this virus. So if H5N1 virus were to change and become easily transmissible from person to person, while retaining its capacity to cause severe disease, the consequences for the public health could be very serious. So why very serious? Because it is having higher mortality rate. Since it is having a higher mortality rate, please also another thing that it does not transmit from one person to another person. No transmission from one person to another person as of now. But what if it evolves and changes and it started transmitting from one person to other person? So that could become a potential pandemic. Okay, so much more severe than the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is the cause of concern with respect to bird flu. Now today also I have a one more important practice question. So the question is, recently Mount Ibu was erupted, spewing a huge ash tower of 5 kilometers into the atmosphere, and it is located in which of the following countries? So if you regularly follow news, so you can clearly answer, you can correctly answer this question. So the options given here are A. Japan, B. Spain, C. Indonesia, and D. France. So please answer this question in the comment section, and I will also give the correct answer tomorrow. Now one by one, let's try to understand and discuss all important and all relevant articles. So the first editorial is stabilizing India ties in changing times. So India-Nepal ties. So the key concept here, Nepal and India ties or India-Nepal ties. Now recently there are multiple factors which actually led to the deterioration of ties between India and Nepal. So what are those causes? Firstly, border tensions or border issues between India and Nepal. So because there are certain regions between India and Nepal borders. So they are Kalapani, Limpiadura, Kalapani. So these are the border issues that Nepal has been claiming that Kalapani, Limpiadura belong to Nepal. But on the other hand, both India and Nepal have disagreements over these regions that the Nepal has been claiming as their territory. And the second thing is increasing Chinese influence in Nepal. So all these factors have actually caused a concern between India and Nepal ties in recent times. So in fact, if you can understand the India-Bhutan, India-Nepal ties, so they are much more better ties compared to all other neighbors. However, in recent times, because of this border tensions and Chinese increasing influence in Nepal and the domestic politics in Nepal, so all these factors have actually created a cause of concern in Nepal-India relations. Now we will briefly understand the context of this particular editorial. So the context is that there is a growing restlessness and uncertainty in Nepal in recent times. So the uncertainty and restlessness in Nepal is because of the political and economic challenges that the Nepal has been facing. Because Nepal very often don't have the political stability. So that is one reason. The second reason is increasing inflation in Nepal and higher prices of various goods and services. So all these factors have actually creating a lot of political and economic challenges in Nepal, and that further in turn affecting or creating restlessness and uncertainty in Nepal. So these things actually prompted discussions about country's overall governance and its future trajectory, because country's stability now will decide its future trajectory or its future. So therefore it is very important that how the country's internal dynamics are actually impacting Nepal's overall growth and its future trajectory as well. However, the recent political developments, so those political developments include shifts in alliances within the domestic politics of Nepal and the foreign policy decisions taken by the government in Nepal have heightened the concerns about Nepal's overall stability and at the same time its relations with neighbors like India. Its relations with all neighbors, but especially with a country like India, because understand, I have already told you that India and Nepal have the border issues with respect to Kalapani and Limpiadurai. Okay, so recently Nepal has also issued a currency note claiming the new territories belong to Nepal, and that has also created a disagreement between India and Nepal. Now please try to understand the political and economic uncertainty in Nepal. So what kind of a political and economic uncertainty? So there are different questions over the effectiveness of the governance in Nepal, because Nepal actually made a transition from a monarchy to a secular federal democratic republic having its own constitution. Okay, so therefore recent debates which are actually surrounding the credentials of Nepal as a secular federal democratic republic, because it has adopted its own constitution and it has also led to the loss of its Hindu identity. So therefore overall questions are raised on the governance of Nepal. So that is the one thing. And the second thing is that the foreign policy dynamics of the Nepal are also in question, because if you look at the recent political shifts within Nepal, so they included the coalition partners and diplomatic overtures to China. So diplomatic overtures in the sense that now Nepal is actually interested in having close ties with Beijing. Okay, so that is in diplomatic terms called as diplomatic overtures to China. These things actually raised a lot of concerns about Nepal's alignment and its future implications for overall regional dynamics and particularly its relationship with India. So it is true that when Chinese influence has been increasing or further expanding in Nepal, and Nepal has been allowing China to invest in the infrastructure development that could pose potential strategic security challenges or concerns for India. Okay, so that is why Nepal's growing friendship with China would certainly impact its relations with India, and that is what the author has been saying here. However, there are certain challenges for the stability of Nepal as well. Now, first and foremost challenge for the stability of Nepal is having political instability, because you very often see the coalition governments in Nepal, and there are a very in Nepal you rarely see a stable governments. So that is one such challenge. So when you have the political instability in any country, that creates a lot of governance related issues as well. And at the same time, the higher levels of corruption in government or especially in country is also another concern, and that has been posing significant challenges for the overall stability of the government. So therefore, it necessitates a careful attention from both domestic and international stakeholders is required with respect to Nepal, because otherwise if Nepal continues to have this political instability, and what if there is a civil war in Nepal, then India cannot afford such instability in South Asia or any other country, because India is located in the troubled neighborhood, and these troubled neighborhood around India are being exploited by the other countries, the outsider countries. So therefore it is not in the interest of India or in the region, okay, to have instability in Nepal. Now in this context, what will be the India's role and what will be the strategic considerations for India with respect to the Nepal's instability? And first and foremost, we need to talk about the strategic dynamics with India. Strategic dynamics with China. So please understand, I have already explained that Chinese influence has been increasing in India, in Nepal every year. So that has been marked by diplomatic engagements, having regular diplomatic engagements, and China has been making infrastructure projects under its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative actually presents strategic and security challenges for India, because Nepal is not far away from India, and in fact we have a visa-free regime for the people of Nepal who come to India and they work in India. So India's diplomatic approach, if you look at India's diplomatic approach, so India approach to Nepal has been very often characterized as a cautious approach. Now, the cautious approach actually includes respect for its sovereignty, because very often these neighbors consider India as a big brother rather than elder brother, and all these countries have concerns with respect to India, and because of that reason their closeness with countries like China has been increasing. So that is one reason whether Maldives, Sri Lanka or Nepal and their growing closeness with China is because of India being perceived as a big brother by these neighboring countries of India, but that is not the case. Okay, so India always respects the sovereignty of the countries, and there will be no interference in the internal affairs of those countries, and India always look to share look to promote shared developmental goals and the mutual cooperation as well. Okay, so these are the objectives that India has been looking for, and at the same time at present if you look at India and Nepal relations, so at present relations offer a lot of opportunities for the collaboration, so that India can build on these opportunities to further step up its engagement with the Nepal, so that there will be no differences between these two countries and we can enjoy the best possible relation with our neighbors. So when we have good relations with neighbors, when we have a stable South Asia, so India can effectively play a leadership role within the region and beyond the region also. So in this case, India actually has the opportunity to further strengthen its ties or its relations with Nepal. So how can it develop its relations with Nepal? Through a holistic developmental initiatives, and at the same time fostering economic growth and promoting the cross-border investments. Now understand, India is one of the biggest investors for Nepal. So in this case, Nepal cannot afford to lose India's investments. So therefore there are a lot of opportunities, but we must build on those opportunities to further strengthen our bilateral ties. However, there are certain areas that are being recognized for India-Nepal relations or India-Nepal cooperation. Those areas include healthcare, education and infrastructure. So therefore India must step up its cooperation with Nepal in these areas, so they generate a lot of goodwill in the minds of people for India, and at the same time it is also a source of soft power, and over a period of time this could also generate political stability in the country. So next important article is with respect to the smart cities mission, right? See, in India, urban areas are actually recognized as engines of economic growth. Engines of economic growth. However, the problem is that the urban areas do not have the adequate infrastructure to support growing population, to maintain the existing levels of economic growth rate, because cities actually contribute the higher levels of economic growth. So therefore they do not have adequate infrastructure, and cities have been suffering with a lot of problems. Now if I can tell you some basic problems that the cities have been facing is high disaster vulnerability is one such problem, because if you look at Indian cities, they have been facing floods almost every year. For example, recent Bengaluru floods, or water stress or water crisis in Bengaluru, or Hyderabad floods, Chennai floods. So they have a higher disaster vulnerability, and at the same time poor performance of the urban local governance. So that is also the other challenge that these urban areas have been facing. And after that, the traffic congestion is the next challenge. They also facing the problem of pollution and higher growth of slums and lack of adequate infrastructure, poor living standards of the people, all these challenges that these urban areas have been facing. And in fact, if India wanted to attract more and more investments, so we need to have a robust cities. Okay, so robust cities that have all the necessary infrastructure. Okay, so I hope you have understood what is the relevance of these smart cities mission, because cities are the engines of economic growth. Now understand the context of this particular article. So the context is that the smart cities mission is actually a flagship program by the union government, and this particular program was launched by government in the year 2015. However, it is said that the smart cities mission has actually taken a back seat in this election year, the government promises and government's achievements. So what was the reason for that? Why the government has been less prioritizing the smart cities mission is actually the key context of this particular article. Now briefly understand about these smart cities. Right, so smart city has been used widely ever since 2009, and 2008 was the year when we have seen great financial crash. So therefore, ever since, smart cities program has been widely used since 2009. As I have already discussed that it is a major flagship program, and thus the smart cities program or smart cities mission was announced in June 2015. Now under this smart cities mission, 100 cities across the country will be developed as smart cities in the next 5 years. So this is the overall objective of the government. I hope it is clear for you. Under the smart cities mission, the government will develop 100 smart cities in the next 5 years across the country. Now what is the smart city mission and what kind of an infrastructure that the government wanted to develop? So the government under the smart cities program wanted to drive the economic growth and also improve the quality of the life of people. Now, so in smart cities or in urban areas, what are the basic problems that very often citizens face? Pollution is one such problem, and apart from pollution, the drinking water issues, sanitation is the other issue, and apart from sanitation, the solid waste management or having landfill sites is another problem. Slum development or excessive growth of slums and poor living standards. So all these factors actually lead to the poor living standards among the people who are living in urban areas. So therefore, in this context, what a government will do under smart cities program, the government will actually focus on all these issues and at the same time develop smart cities in a holistic and comprehensive manner. And that is how we can improve the living conditions or living standards of the people in urban areas through the smart cities mission or smart cities program. And at the same time make these urban areas as engines of economic growth and enabling the local development, at the same time harnessing technology as a means to create smart outcomes for the citizens going ahead. Now the smart cities are actually equipped with a basic infrastructure, because in every urban area there is a need for basic infrastructure. Now, what kind of a basic infrastructure that every urban area should have? The basic infrastructure include housing, include social provisioning such as education and healthcare. So that is also part of the basic infrastructure, and apart from that, sanitation is also part of the basic infrastructure, and environmental sustainability, environment which is free from the pollution. So all these factors are actually the basic infrastructure requirements of these urban areas. Now under the smart cities mission, the government will focus on providing basic infrastructure facilities in all urban areas or 100 urban areas in the next 5 years, and that is the objective of the smart cities program that the government has launched. Now in this image you can clearly see the components of the smart cities program. For example, it focuses on developing a smart economy, smart environment, smart government, smart living and smart mobility along with smart people. Now when I say smart mobility, so the mobility focuses on the public transportation system and at the same time focusing on reduced emissions, reduced levels of pollution. So that is how we can integrate it with the information and communication technology, clean and non-motorized options and mixed modal access. So everything are part of the smart mobility. When I say smart people, so that includes inclusive society, where we provide opportunity for the every section of the society to develop themselves, to develop their capabilities, and we embrace the creativity from different sectors, and 21st century education will also be provided in these smart cities. And next, it also includes smart economy. Smart economy essentially focuses on developing entrepreneurship, skill development, further enhancing the productivity and prioritizing innovation along with local and global interconnectedness in these smart cities is also very important aspect, because that is how we can attract the larger investments into the economy. And after that, it also focuses on smart and sustainable environment. So smart environment include green buildings. So these green buildings essentially reduces the urban heat island effect. Because of this urban heat island effect, the temperatures are actually soaring or increasing every day. So therefore it reduces the urban heat island effect by building these green buildings. Green energy and green urban planning, all these are components of smart environment. Further, smart government actually includes the integration with the information and communication technologies, electronic governance, transparency in the governance structure, and open data will be provided for access to every citizen, and it will also enable supply and demand size policy. And apart from that, it will be culturally vibrant when we talk about smart living and safe, healthy. So all these factors are essential components as part of the smart city mission. However, the smart city mission is actually facing certain challenges. Now, what kind of a challenges that the smart city mission has been facing? Now, these the development of the smart cities is not the responsibility of the existing urban local bodies. Now, urban local bodies were established as part of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, but these urban local bodies were not given any responsibility to develop smart cities or smart cities mission. Rather, a special purpose vehicle would be established. This special purpose vehicle is independent of the urban local bodies, and this special purpose vehicle itself takes care of looking after the development of smart cities across the country. So that is the main challenge, where despite having constitutional bodies such as urban local bodies or constitution established bodies, we have been giving the major powers to the special purpose vehicles and sidelining the responsibilities or the functioning of the urban local bodies. Second thing is that it can create islands of development. Now, the government actually focused on developing 100 smart cities across the country. So therefore, what about the other urban areas? The government should also focus on all other cities. Only then we will be able to achieve the inclusive growth and development, and that is the overall objective of any country which is aspiring for the sustainable development. However, you just create 100 smart cities across the country, and that would result in creation of islands of development, and that would further propel the migration into these smart cities from different parts of the country. Then ultimately it will lead to the failure of the smart cities program, because the cities as of now, they do not have adequate capacity to accommodate a higher number of population. So that is another major problem. And after that, the state and local governments actually lack the fine-grained data with respect to these urban areas. Now, in any policy, the data-driven policy making, the evidence-based policy making is very, very important. And when the governments do these evidence-based or data-driven policy, only when they have access to data. But now there is no such data available with respect to this smart cities program. So therefore, it has also creating a lot of problems in the development of smart cities and very often leading to the delays in establishing infrastructure in these smart cities, and that has to change in the immediate effect. Then there is also an inadequate emphasis on the functioning of the urban local bodies that we have already discussed, because through the smart cities program they have established these special purpose vehicles sidelining the urban local bodies or their functions and their responsibilities. And that is also a key concern, because these urban local bodies are essentially established for the purpose of democratic decentralization or to ensure participatory governance at the level of urban area. Here every stakeholder will be consulted before taking or making any policy. And in this smart cities mission also, people's involvement, people's participation is very, very important, and that can be ensured by these urban local bodies. But through the smart cities mission, what you are doing, you are just sidelining these urban local bodies and giving all the responsibilities to these special purpose vehicles. And apart from that, these urban local bodies have also been facing a lot of shortcomings, in the sense they lack technical and human capacity and even professionalism to maintain or to manage these smart cities. So all these factors have to be given adequate priority by the government if it wanted to develop a futuristic, sustainable smart cities. However, we also have a way forward for this smart cities program. So the way forward for this particular smart cities program actually includes, so understand that it is not a comprehensive or complete solution for the urban development or for the sustainable urban development. So that in urban areas we generally see the crisis in governance, crisis in the functioning of urban local bodies, and urban local bodies do not have adequate functions with them. So therefore, we cannot see smart cities mission simply as a solution to the existing urban crisis. Rather, we must understand the problem rationally through the available data. So when we have the data with respect to the existing urban areas, so that would further facilitate the data driven and at the same time the evidence based policy making, and that is very, very important, and that is what we should focus on here. However, the smart cities program actually aims at affordable housing and modern transportation. Now see, smart cities mission actually focused on providing basic amenities or basic infrastructure in these urban areas, selected 100 urban smart cities. So as part of it, as part of basic infrastructure, it focuses on affordable housing and at the same time the modern transportation also. Modern transportation essentially focuses on reducing traffic congestion in urban areas and at the same time also reducing the levels of pollution in these urban areas. Okay, so therefore now the government should facilitate a smoother land acquisition. Okay, so there will not be any urban sprawl when the government actually acquires more land and use the land for the further development of the city. However, the key question that comes here is that rehabilitation and resettlement issues. So therefore the government must focus on this rehabilitation and resettlement issues. And then the other thing is citizen participation. Citizen participation is very, very important, and that is what I am stressing on. The urban local bodies can actually emphasize us on the citizen participation, the stakeholder participation. In the smart cities mission, citizen participation is very, very important, and taking all the policy inputs, necessary policy inputs, and at the same time redressal of the grievances of the citizens. Everything actually helps in the further implementation or a better implementation or better planning of these smart cities. And finally, smart cities development actually requires smart leadership, the leadership from the central government, the leadership from the state government, and even at the local bodies. So therefore this leadership should come from all three tiers of the government: central, state, and the local government. Only then the mission, smart cities mission, can achieve all its objectives and can further strengthen these urban areas as the engines of economic growth. Now the next article is with respect to Chabahar port. So this is also a very important article that is in news. Chabahar port. Now this Chabahar port is located in Iran, and India actually have access to one of the terminal of the Chabahar port. Now why India wanted to develop this Chabahar port, which is located in Iran? It is because India wanted to access Central Asia. Okay, so India wanted to access Central Asia. Central Asia is very important for its energy resources, the mineral resources, for all these factors. And apart from its access to Europe also, Central Asia is very important. But one way through which we can access Central Asia is through Pakistan. But Pakistan closed its access, India's access to Afghanistan through land route. So now India started exploring the alternatives for its access to Afghanistan and beyond Afghanistan, including Central Asia. So one such option that is India explored is Chabahar port. Okay, so through this Chabahar port, India can access Afghanistan and beyond Afghanistan into Central Asia. And that is why India has been developing this Chabahar port on its own. Now understand the context of this particular article. Now 8 years after concluding a general framework cooperation on Chabahar port, Iran on Monday signed 10-year contract for its operation. Now earlier also, 8 years before also, India and Iran have actually signed a general framework agreement on the Chabahar port. But recently, both these countries have again signed a memorandum of understanding, a contract for its operation, a 10-year contract for the operation of the Chabahar port. And in fact, it is dubbed as, or it is known as, the long-term agreement between India and Iran. And that is specifically between Indian Ports Global Limited and Port and Maritime Organization of Iran, that has been enabling operation of Shahid Beheshti terminal. Now understand, this Chabahar port has 2 terminals, and one such terminal where India developed this terminal is Shahid Beheshti terminal. Now, so please understand about the Chabahar port in a little bit detailed manner. Now Chabahar port is actually a seaport in Chabahar region, so that is located in southeastern Iran. Now this is how the Iran actually looks. Okay, so Pakistan and Iran, and this is the eastern Iran. This is southeastern Iran. Now this Chabahar port is located in the southeastern Iran on the Gulf of Oman. And in fact, so the strategic significance of this Chabahar port is that it serves as only oceanic port for Iran, and at the same time it also consists 2 separate ports. So one such port was Shahid Kalantari port, and second one was Shahid Beheshti, that India actually develops and operates as part of the agreement. So each of which having 5 berths. Okay, so berths are also very important in these ports. So therefore it is only about the other strategic importance of this Chabahar port is that it is only 170 kilometers west of the Pakistani port Gwadar, right? So this Gwadar port in Pakistan is actually developed, this port was developed by China, or China has been developing this Gwadar port in Pakistan. And therefore strategically also this Chabahar port is very important for India, because it is not too far from China developed Gwadar port in Pakistan. And Indian Ports Global Limited will invest 120 million in equipping this port in the coming days. So 120 million is also a huge sum of amount that India is going to invest, or India is going to provide for Iran. So India also offered a credit window of 250 million for mutually identified projects that are actually aimed at improving the Chabahar related infrastructure. Now please understand, I will give you a brief strategic aspects which are involved in India's huge investments in Iran, especially with respect to Chabahar port. Now we all knew that Iran and US are having the conflictual relations, so they do not have the good relations. So therefore, because of that reason and India's growing closeness with China has actually growing closeness with US has actually resulted in India's growing distance with Iran. And taking this as an opportunity, China has significantly stepped up its investments in Iran. And that is where India has been losing its advantage with respect to Iran. Now, India's investments in Iran is also a welcome strategic move from the Indian side, and at the same time, it will further enhance India's access with Afghanistan and beyond Afghanistan, including Central Asia. Now, this memorandum of understanding that is being signed by India and Iran for the development of Chabahar port was actually first signed in May 2015. And this contract was executed from May 23, 2016. However, so we can say that this agreement has actually known as a landmark agreement because it has resulted in further enhancing trade, marine cooperation, transshipment, while focusing on the trilateral trade between the countries such as Afghanistan, Iran and India. So that is how we can consider India's agreement with Iran with respect to Chabahar port is actually a milestone agreement. Apart from that, India also continues to invest in Chabahar port, regularly investing in Chabahar port and further enhancing its efficiency and capacity. And this would further solidify India's commitment to the development of the region, the economic development, economic growth of this region. So that will further enhances India-Iran ties also and India's links with the Central Asia. Remember, this was the question that UPSC regularly asking, so therefore it is very important. Now India will use the port for humanitarian aid shipments, relief, framing its commitment to support regional development beyond the commercial interests, and these will be the objectives or advantages of having or developing Chabahar port in Iran. So the other significant aspect of this Chabahar port, you can see clearly this is southeastern Iran, the Balochistan province of Iran. So Gwadar port is located somewhere here, and this is Chabahar port. So strategically also it is very important, and this is how India will access Afghanistan and beyond Afghanistan. Okay, so through the shipping route, it will be connected, it connects India with this Chabahar port, from Chabahar port to land route to Afghanistan, so that we can bypass Pakistan. Actually earlier route was we can access Afghanistan from the Union Territory of Ladakh, Pakistan, and then Afghanistan, but now Pakistan actually closed its land route for India to access Afghanistan. So to overcome this, India has actually developed this, so stating that it actually served as a vital trade artery that is connecting India with Afghanistan and Central Asian countries. And also understand, Chabahar is a deep water port located in Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. So this is Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. Now the other important article is that recently the James Webb Space Telescope has actually identified a first rocky planet with the atmosphere, because this is also a significant milestone. It is the first time that a rocky planet with the atmosphere has been identified. Okay, so earlier there were a number of planets were identified, But the problem is that they were not rocky planets and they do not have the atmosphere. Rather, they have thick atmosphere that is not habitable in, those planets are not habitable in nature. But this was the first, a planet, a rock with a rocky, kind of a structure, and at the same time, it also has the atmosphere. Now, astronomers have searched for years for the rocky planets beyond our solar system, because in solar system, Earth is only habitable planet, and other planets do not have the conditions which are necessary for the habitation. Okay, so in fact, the zone where Earth is orbiting the sun is known as Goldilocks zone. So it is known as Goldilocks zone. So that is the habitable zone. Now scientists have been searching for these Goldilocks zones and planets which are in this Goldilocks zone. Okay, so now scientists have been, or astronomers have been, looking for these rocky planets beyond our solar system with atmosphere, and this is actually a trait considered essential for any possibility of harboring life. However, a super Earth is, a planet with a Earth-like atmosphere, or Earth-like planet, but it is much bigger in size. A super Earth is a type of exoplanet with mass higher than Earth's, but substantially below those of the solar system's icy or ice chains, such as Uranus and Neptune, so which are 14.5 to 17 times bigger than the planet Earth. Now, what is a light year? The light year is that it is a distance light travels in a year, so that is 9.5 trillion kilometer per year. So that is the light year. Okay, so this planet is known as 55 Cancri e. So scientists have actually discovered a rocky planet, so that is 55 Cancri e, beyond our solar system. So that is not in our solar system, but rather it is beyond our solar system, with atmosphere detected by the James Webb Space Telescope. And in fact, this 55 Cancri e is larger than Earth and smaller than Neptune. Okay, and in fact, this planet is also known as hellish planet. So why? Because the surface of the newly found planet actually have a molten rock, so therefore it offers no hope for the habitability. Okay, because it is having a molten rock, so that will not have any chances of habitability. The planet is actually known as a super Earth. So we have understood what exactly is the super Earth. Super Earth is a rocky world significantly larger than our planet, but smaller than most of our ice planets in the solar system, such as Uranus and Neptune. And at the same time, it also orbits around the sun, in its system. However, the sun of this new planet is comparatively lesser in size than our sun. So therefore, slightly less massive than our sun, but rapidly completing its orbit in just 18 hours. So these are some features of this newly found rocky planet. So the atmosphere is likely rich in carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, but can also have other gases such as water vapor and sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. And this atmosphere could be as thick as the Earth or even thicker than that of Venus, whose toxic atmosphere is the densest in our solar system. And apart from that, the planet is probably tidally locked with its star. Okay, so tidally locked essentially means that the same side is actually facing the star. So that is how the moon is actually tidally locked with the Earth. Because of that reason, only one side of the moon always facing the sun. Okay, so that is tidally locked, and it is also said that this new planet is also probably tidally linked with its star. So the other important editorial is with respect to the poverty ratio, declining poverty ratio in India. Okay, so it is said that the government has been making a huge progress in declining the levels of poverty in India. So even though the COVID-19 pandemic has led to more and more people slipped into the poverty cycle, but if you look at the long-term data of poverty in India, so the poverty rates are actually declining. Now understand the context. So recently, the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey 22-23 was actually released by National Sample Survey Office. Now this is very important for your prelims. Please note that the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey is being released by the National Sample Survey Office, NSSO, and that has led to the estimations of poverty and inequality trends by many researchers in India. Now understand the poverty. What exactly is the poverty? So the definition of the poverty is it is actually a condition where people and the communities are very often lacking basic necessities. For example, housing, clothing, education, healthcare, electricity, drinking water, sanitation. So those things are known as a basic necessity or minimum standard of living. Okay, so since they lack the proper resources, they are also deprived of the basic necessities, and they also have the minimum standard of living, and this is how the poverty is actually defined. And these include the financial resources for the people, so having a less income, lack of basic healthcare access, education, clean drinking water and infrastructure. So everything is considered part of the poverty. So this will further lead to the minimum standard of living or poor standard of living. Now what were the trends in poverty and inequality in India? So according to this particular data that is being released, poverty is actually declined based on the various committees and their earlier suggestions. Because as per the Rangarajan Committee's poverty lines, in India, poverty has actually declined from 29.5% in 2011-12 to 10% in 22-23. Okay, so there is a significant decline in the poverty as per the Rangarajan Committee's poverty lines. And secondly, we also have the Tendulkar Committee's poverty lines also. So the Tendulkar Committee's poverty lines, on the basis of this Tendulkar Committee poverty lines, so the poverty rates are actually declined from 21.9% in 2011-12 to 3% in 2022-23. So please understand, this data is very, very important. If you can quote this data in your answers, your mains answers, so those answers will be further enriched and you will get better marks, right? So next, inequality is also said to be declined. So as per the Subramanian's estimates, they actually indicate the Gini coefficient declined from 0.278 to 0.269. Now what exactly is this Gini coefficient? So this Gini coefficient actually indicates the distribution of income among the different individuals. So here I have given the Gini coefficient. So it is actually a measure of income distribution across population, and it is expressed as a number between 0. So 0 means perfect equality, and 1 is perfect inequality. Now you can clearly see here the Gini coefficient declined from 0.278 to 0.269. So declining the Gini coefficient actually means it is coming towards 0. So that indicates there is Gini coefficient has actually been declining, and inequalities are also declining in rural areas. And if you look at urban areas, the Gini coefficient has been declining from 0.358 to 0.318 in the urban areas from 2011-12 to 2022-23. So therefore, overall, there is a significant decline in the urban inequality compared to the rural areas between this particular time period. Now, there are certain issues in the estimation of poverty. Okay, so and at the same time the consumption expenditure. Now what are those issues? Firstly, there is a shift away from the calorie norm based poverty line. Okay, so earlier the poverty was calculated based on the calories that the person has been consuming. Okay, so however, the Tendulkar Committee actually recognized the inadequacy of this calorie based poverty estimation. Now instead of this calorie based poverty line, the Tendulkar Committee indirectly utilized the calorie norms. So how it indirectly used this calorie norms to estimate poverty? By adopting the urban poverty line, so which is based on the Lagdawala committee. So that Lagdawala committee was also appointed on this or established on poverty estimation in India. So Lagdawala's methodology, which actually includes the calorie norms also. The urban poverty line actually includes the calorie norms also because of the inadequacy in the calorie norms. And apart from that, there is a lot of complexity in the poverty measurement in India because there is no universally agreed method with respect to measuring poverty. Okay, so different countries have actually defined different ways of measuring poverty, and that actually leading to the variability in these estimates. However, overall, given the inadequacy of this calorie norm based poverty lines, so these inadequacies are recognized by the Tendulkar committee. So there is a need for adopting a more comprehensive and more holistic approaches in poverty estimations to consider the evolving consumption patterns and essential non-food items consumption patterns. Okay, so that is how we can actually calculate or measure poverty in a much more accurate and much more efficient manner. Okay, so that's all for today, and thank you so much. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.